Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something literally massive. It's a system so huge, so powerful, that it actually dictates the weather right outside your window, no matter where you live on this planet. We're looking at the global conveyor belt, but we're exploring it through a really unique lens today, specifically the heroesmartacademy's Godly Learners series. This material views our planet's climate stabilizer not just as a marvel of physical science, but as an incredible, divinely engineered marine climate regulator. We're going to see exactly how order is maintained in the natural world and, well, what happens when that order gets disrupted. Let's get right into it.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover God's marine climate regulator, how ocean currents actually work, disrupting the conveyor belt, real-world climate impacts, and finally, we'll wrap up with education, morality, and stewardship.
All right, starting off with Section 1, God's marine climate regulator.
The HeroesMart series brings in this really vivid imagery from Psalm 33, verse 7. It talks about gathering the waters of the sea into jars and putting the deep into storehouses. Think about that imagery for a second. The text paints a picture where the oceans aren't just, giant puddles of water. They're massive, purposefully designed storehouses. They are storing immense amounts of thermal energy, holding on to the heat from the sun and carefully distributing it all over the globe. The source material presents this entire setup as a system of profound order, showing a very clear intended balance in creation.
Now, the scientific term for this moving storehouse is the global conveyor belt. So why exactly do we call it a climate stabilizer? Well, because these currents are constantly carrying warm and cold water all across the globe, keeping our climate nice and steady. Without this massive system pushing energy around, the equator would be boiling hot, and the poles would literally be frozen solid. It acts as the great equalizer of our planet's temperature, basically making sure the Earth stays beautifully habitable for us.
Moving right along to Section 2, how ocean currents work.
There's this absolutely fascinating contrast between the two main types of currents driving this whole belt. Up on the surface, you've got winds and the Earth's rotation physically pushing the water along. But deep below, the engine is powered by something totally different: temperature and salt. Scientists call this thermohaline circulation. See, when water gets really cold and really salty, it actually becomes heavier and denser, so it sinks straight down to the ocean floor, which pulls more water in right behind it. That sinking action, that's the actual motor keeping the entire global conveyor belt churning. Pretty amazing, right?
Okay, Section 3, disrupting the conveyor belt.
Right now, we're witnessing a pretty dangerous domino effect. When polar ice melts rapidly, it dumps absolutely massive amounts of fresh water straight into the ocean. Now remember what we just talked about with those deep currents. They desperately need salty, dense water to sink and drive the whole belt. But fresh water is light, it just floats right on top. So as the salt level, or salinity, drops, the water doesn't sink nearly as fast. The motor basically starts to stall out, and the entire system of ocean currents begins to slow down. One single disruption in the ice sets off a chain reaction across the entire globe.
Which brings us to Section 4, real-world climate impacts. When these massive currents get disrupted, the extreme weather shifts happen almost immediately. For example, if the Gulf Stream, also known as the AMOC, weakens, it stops pulling all that warm water up to the North Atlantic. What does that mean for us? Well, Europe could face severe cooling, while all that trapped heat causes the tropics to dangerously overheat. Meanwhile, you've got rapid ice melt in Greenland acting like a giant freshwater tap, literally threatening to shut down those deep ocean currents completely. And even natural patterns like El Niño show us exactly how temporary shifts in ocean temperatures can totally disrupt rainfall in Asia, trigger massive floods in the Americas, and just completely flip winter weather globally. The curriculum highlights a really crucial takeaway here. When this perfectly intended balance is thrown off, regions suffer severe consequences that we don't always spot right away. We might think of ocean currents as, something way out there in the deep sea, far away from our daily lives. But they are intimately tied to whether a farmer gets enough rain to grow crops or whether a coastal city gets hit by devastating floods. It is all connected in one beautiful but incredibly delicate system.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 5, education, morality, and stewardship.
I want you to think deeply about this for a second. What is the actual point of being smart and highly educated if we just continue to make bad choices that hurt us? We have all these amazing scientific tools to understand the global conveyor belt. But the series poses a really interesting parallel. Just as disrupting the physical laws of the ocean causes global chaos, gaining education without moral laws causes deep personal and societal harm. Knowledge all by itself just isn't enough.
If we know our actions disrupt a vital system, but we lack the moral compass to actually change our behavior, then frankly, our education has failed us.
And this is exactly why the Smart Academy Godly Learners series intertwines biblical morality directly with education. The philosophy here is simple, but it's super profound. It's meant to guide us as responsible stewards of our minds and the creation that the series sees as being entrusted to us. When we study the oceans, the program argues we aren't just cramming facts for a test, we're learning the mechanics of a vital, living system. The series argues that without a foundation of morality, humans just tend to exploit and disrupt. But when you add that moral foundation, education suddenly becomes this incredible tool for stewardship, healing, and protection.
The source material points to Romans chapter 8, noting that aligning our education with spiritual mindfulness actually brings a profound peace of mind. Let's be honest, the world's climate disruptions can seem completely chaotic and overwhelming. But the curriculum posits that true education, when grounded in spiritual truth, offers real clarity. It suggests that learning how to live in harmony with both the physical laws of the earth and these spiritual teachings yields a deep, abiding peace, even when the world gets incredibly complex.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We've seen just how magnificently the oceans sustain life and exactly how fast bad choices can unravel that delicate balance. So as the HeroesMart series challenges us, you have the knowledge now. How are you going to use a morally grounded education to navigate and protect the delicate systems of our world? Will you step up as a steward who brings order and peace, or become someone who contributes to the disruption? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving for that perfect balance.